What's up, pack members? It's your leader Spirits Alpha here, and welcome to another video. So, this video is almost like a true sequel to my previous two videos, which were, the MCU ratings. Well, this time I'm going to do something very similar, but also a little bit with a different focus. So, I reviewed the movies that have been played up till now, but what about the miniseries? And for those of you who say the miniseries don't matter, well, I'll tell you that is wrong. Because I thought the same thing at first, but then after watching some of the miniseries, it's revealed that they actually do very much tie into the MCU and are very important. So I thought I'd take it upon myself and rate all the miniseries that are currently available to watch to a full. So, whatever the case, let's get ready to get started. But as usual, this video does contain spoilers for the Disney Plus miniseries. So, if you have not seen them yet and don't want spoilers, I recommend you stop watching now. But if you have seen them and you want to know how I feel about them, well, let's get started. And one more quick note, sorry to keep y'all waiting, but this list will not include other shows that have been played before the MCU, such as like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil, Cloak and Dagger, Inhumans, Runaways, whatever. To be honest, I haven't even watched most of them. Well, Daredevil, I've seen the first few seasons of, but that's not important. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Starting off the list with The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this miniseries was quite interesting. Pretty much, this involves or takes place after the events of Endgame, where Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, goes off to pretty much live his life that he pretty much missed all these years, and on top of that, he gives the shield to Sam Wilson, the Falcon, and pretty much says to take care of the shield or whatever. And this pretty what follows is Sam pretty much puts it in a museum to like honor Captain America or whatever. And at the same time, Bucky, the Winter Soldier or White Wolf, whatever you want to call him, pretty much joins with Sam Wilson. Have a talk. He's not pleased with Sam for giving away the shield or just putting it in a museum, especially after her character John Walker becomes the new Captain America, and I'm gonna say this right off the bat: John Walker sucks. Like John Walker, I hated him the moment I saw him, and you can say whatever you want about him, and I don't care if he has the shield or not. He is not Captain America, and the thing he did to that Flag Smasher, that is not forgivable. Captain America may hit hard, but he would never do what John Walker did, and I'm happy to see that the consequences found him, or at least justice got served to him. Because John Walker was a terrible, character. Like, let's be honest, he was terrible. And obviously, the plot of this show is Sam and Bucky are, making their way and trying to deal with a group called the Flag Smashers, which are also super soldiers. Kind of an interesting little hero, or not hero team, villain team, if you want to call it that. And that's pretty much how the whole show goes. They learn more and more about one and the other, the pair, and they pretty much face off against the Flag Smashers. And yeah, just trying to uncover everything they can. And I assumed this would happen right here, and I was right. Obviously, Sam Wilson has now taken up the mantle of Captain America, and I kind of had a feeling he's going to do that because I know for a fact that I've seen the Falcon as Captain America before, so that was actually kind of cool to see live action. Whatever case, though, I rate this show. It's okay. I mean, I don't think it's the greatest I've ever watched, but it's still a pretty good show. And I think this show might tie into a later Avengers movie and even the Thunderbolts whenever that comes out. But whatever case, I rate this show okay. Next up on the list is Hawkeye. So this is another miniseries that introduces a new character, and the new character for this one is Kate Bishop. And I knew about Kate Bishop for a little bit. She's pretty much a female Hawkeye, if you want to call her that. And this show pretty much revolves around Kate learning how to be a proper archer slash superhero, along with Hawkeye Clint Barton as her mentor, and also the dog Lucky. I think that's what his name was, Lucky. So yeah, that's something I do really like Lucky. And obviously, the main antagonist of this show was, well, besides Kingpin, but he was barely a part of it till almost the very end, was the Tracksuit Mafias, which were pretty much like this version's show of the Flag Smashers, or I say enemy group, not, you know what I mean. And their leader was the character, I forgot her real name, but she's Echo. So, yep, first this is the series that introduced Echo, and I'm not gonna lie, I've heard of Echo before, but I had no idea she was deaf. But that's all I can say about it. I do think Echo was definitely a cool character, and I am looking forward to seeing what she'll offer in her new show whenever that comes out. But overall, I think Hawkeye was another show that felt kind of slow at times, but it was still a really good show. So I do give Hawkeye a thumbs up. I thought ill of it before I watched it, but after watching everything of it, or every episode of it, I have to say it's actually not bad, because it definitely symbolizes what the character of Hawkeye is all about. So yeah, thumbs up to Hawkeye. It's a pretty good miniseries. The next show on the list is Loki. And I know season 2 just came out of this show, but I have not started watching it yet. And to be honest, it wouldn't be fair for me to rank this show's second season when it's not even complete. So pretty much, I guess I should be more specific. This is pretty much my thoughts on season 1 of Loki. So this is a show that follows the events of what happened to Loki during Avengers Endgame, because obviously there was a part when they were trying to get the Space Stone and the Mind Stone, and technically, I mean, they got the Mind Stone, but they failed to get the Space Stone at first. And obviously, Loki picks up the Tesseract and he warps away. The show pretty much explains what happened to that Loki, and pretty much what happened beyond that. It's like Loki ends up in another area, gets arrested by the TVA, which is pretty much like the Time Police, pretty much. And I don't know why, but that kind of reminds me of Power Rangers Time Force. Never seen the show, but I've heard of it. And pretty much, I thought the beginning of the show was kind of weird. Just the concept of a time police, like, arresting what they call variants for, like, breaking the sacred timeline or changing the path of which you're supposed to live by. I don't know. It sounds a little off or a little odd to me. But, as the show progressed on, it ended up getting a little better. Because, like, you can't really judge a show by its first episode. But pretty much what happened after his arrest was Loki pretty much like joins forces with the TVA at first until he meets a variant of him named Sylvie. And by the way, Sylvie is awesome. She's definitely a cool character. And pretty much joins her as the two of them are tracking down something else. I actually forgot what they're tracking down. And it's been a while since I've seen the first season of Loki. But uh, after that, you pretty much meet a guy called the One Who Remains, who's actually Kang the Conqueror, or a Kang the Conqueror, I should say. So, oh yeah. I don't think there's very much else for me to say about the show. So overall, Loki, it's not my favorite show that I've seen so far. Maybe season 2 will make it better. But I do think it's a show that's weird, but also kind of enjoyable. Plus, it's actually kind of cool to see the actor of Loki return in the MCU, even if this is technically a different Loki, if you know what I mean. But overall, this show's pretty good. Yeah, I like it okay. The next show we got is WandaVision, and I'm just gonna say this right off the bat. Even if you don't like it, WandaVision is a definite must watch before seeing the Multiverse of Madness. Otherwise, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will not make sense. But pretty much, WandaVision is a show that kind of starts off in the middle, so to say, and then the backstory behind it is explained towards the end of the show or whatever. And pretty much how this works or what the plot behind it is, I'm going to start from towards the end first so it makes more sense. But pretty much what happened is Wanda is on her own after witnessing, like, Vision's death twice and also fighting Thanos in Endgame. pretty much she's on her own and she goes to a lab. I forgot the name of it at this point, and she sees Vision like disassembled or whatever, and this pretty much makes her reach her breaking point. And during one of her tantrums, if you want to call it that, she pretty much enslaves an entire town known as Westview, and pretty much traps everyone in it, including herself, in like some kind of sitcom or whatever, a sitcom of different eras, if you want to call it that, and pretty much just to be with Vision again. And they obviously later have two boys named Billy and Tommy, but that's a little bit different. And I admit the show is pretty weird, and the first few episodes are total what the heck, but episode 3 starts explaining a little bit more detail in the show, and it ends up getting a little better. So pretty much all the while, Wanda is living in this sitcom world, like outside of what they call the Hex, like the agency known as Sword, along with Monica Rambeau and Jimmy from the second Ant-Man movie. They're first working together to try to find out the mystery behind this whole hex and what Wanda's doing. And if anything, this kind of feels like kind of a crossover show between like old school sitcoms and then like the X Files. And I've never seen the X Files myself, but I have heard of it, and the whole like agency you're trying to find out what's going on definitely kind of reminds me of the X Files because the whole paranormal activity or whatever. Like I said, never seen the X Files. Anyhow, after or that, Wanda goes through a lot of problems or faces a lot of the Sword or the agents, and I think Wanda's very mean in this show. I mean, I understand she's been through a lot of trauma, but that was no excuse to act the way she did. I mean, she was willing to hurt people just to get what she wanted, and she didn't get any better in Multiverse of Madness, not gonna lie. If anything, she got worse in that movie. But the thing about WandaVision is it gets better as it goes on, definitely. And the return of Quicksilver, but with the X-Men version, was also a little weird to me. I mean, I not gonna lie, was not too pleased to see the X-Men Quicksilver. I mean, it was cool to have Quicksilver back, but that's not the right version. Like honestly, that's just not the right version. Anyhow, and another thing that I knew from the beginning is like the moment the character Agatha Harkness, well, or that's her true name, but she went by the name Agnes for most of the show, up until the whole Agatha all along thing played at the end of episode 5, I believe, whatever the second to last episode was. I forgot the number, it's been a while. But pretty much the moment Agnes appeared, I thought right off the bat, okay, she's definitely a villain. She is too friendly to not be a villain. And I was right. So pretty much another cool thing that marks the show's highlight, or another highlight of the show, is the fact that this is the first time that actually introduces the true Scarlet Witch. Sure, we have Wanda and her powers throughout most of the movies ever since she was introduced in Age of Ultron, but this is the first time we actually see the Scarlet Witch like with all of her, or in her true costume, like with like the crown and the other parts of her outfit. And yeah, that was always cool to see. And pretty sure where it ends is like, she fixes the hex or removes the hex, I should say, even if she's saying goodbye to Vision, her boys, if she knows it's the right thing to do, only for her to be possessed by the Darkhold or manipulated by it or something. So, yep. And that's all explained in the Multiverse of Madness. But overall, WandaVision, I do admit it is a weird show, but it's definitely a must watch before Multiverse of Madness. Otherwise, Multiverse of Madness won't really make sense. Whatever case, though, WandaVision, it's a pretty good show. I do recommend it. The next show on the list is Moon Knight. And I'm going to go and say this right off the bat. Moon Knight is my personal favorite of the Marvel miniseries. So, pretty much, this is one of the first miniseries that actually is an origin story rather than taking earlier movie characters and putting them, or continuing their story, I should say. Not including the earlier, series such as, Daredevil and other stuff like that, which are Netflix and other stream service series. This list is specifically limited to Disney Plus series, if it wasn't obvious already. Anyhow, back to Moon Knight. So pretty much this tells the story of Stephen Grant, who's a museum worker. Then one day, a mysterious artifact known as the Scarab pretty much ends up in his possession, and he also meets another character. I forgot his name at this point, but he's like a guy with a cane. Anybody who's seen Moon Knight will know exactly what I'm talking about. And this guy's also secretly like a vessel or avatar, as they call it, for another Egyptian god or a Egyptian god again, and forgot the name of or which one it was. I don't remember all the gods of Egypt right off the top of my head. I only know Anubis, Horus, Osiris, and yeah, whatever. Anyhow, so all the while, even Grant, he wants to do the right thing, but at the same time, something is holding him back, and he also, by talking to his reflection, apparently there's another or him that looks just like him, but sounds very different, has a completely different personality. And this guy's name is Mark Spector, and at the end of the first episode, pretty much Mark Spector demands like Stephen Grant to let him take over, which he finally like agrees to, and he becomes the Moon Knight. And much like WandaVision, this is another show that kind of like starts off kind of in the middle, and then like later on, all the origins are explained. But pretty much at that point, Mark and Steven pretty much have to work as a team by like sharing one body, and at the same time, they both have their own little like superhero identity. Where Mark Spector is Moon Knight, and then Stephen Grant is a character named Mister Knight, obviously. So yeah, or I say obviously, y'all know what I mean. And pretty much like at one point, like both of them are separated in a way, and they pretty much learn about each other. And the plot, I admit, does get rather confusing and pretty dark towards the end, but it's still a really good show. And pretty much like the dark part is pretty much like Mark was pretty much abused by his mother, because his mother, who was also a drunk by the way, blamed him for his brother's death or something. And then one day, a Mark Spector Purse like created another personality, and that's pretty what became Stephen Grant. And yeah, it got pretty complicated. But in the end, the two soon realized or figured out how to work with one another and pretty take on this evil villain. And so, overall, I think the show is really good. I mean, I admit the plot can be a little confusing, and it definitely gets a little dark towards the end, but I think it's a really good show, and I'm really hoping that Moon Knight's story continues in the MCU. I am hoping this is not the last time we'll see of the character. So overall, I do give Moon Knight a 10 out of 10. If I'm over exaggerating, I'll maybe give it a 9 out of 10. But for this list, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. It's my favorite of the miniseries. Next up on the list is Miss Marvel. So this is another miniseries that introduces a new character and explains their origin. So pretty much Miss Marvel is Kamala Khan, and I'm going to say this right off the bat, they chose the perfect actress for the character, considering this actress who played Miss Marvel or Kamala Khan was a good choice, considering she was already a big fan of Marvel before playing this role. So this is really, really good. And I thought they nailed her personality, where she does have superpowers, but she's also a big fangirl. So that was perfect, in my opinion. But obviously, this show is pretty much about her, one night discovering that she has like cosmic based powers after Captain Marvel, which she really loves. And pretty much like all throughout the show, she's learning more and more about out her powers, and even facing off against some like enemies. Forgot what they're exactly called at this point, but pretty much not much to say about this show. Oh, and I admit the show could be a little better. I mean, I don't think it's a perfect show. For Miss Marvel, but I did kind of enjoy it. It was easy to sit back and just watch it, because it's always kind of fun seeing Kamala Khan like be a fangirl while she's fighting evil and whatever. And also, I think it's good that I watched the show, considering obviously with the Marvels coming up next month, and she's clearly going to be a part of it. So I think it's good that I watched this miniseries, so I'll know, or her part is explained well in the Marvels. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Overall, Miss Marvel, again, it's a show that I feel like it's a little weird at times, but overall, it's a good show. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Thumbs up to Miss Marvel, and I also feel like it's good to watch before seeing the Marvels. So, yep, thumbs up to Miss Marvel. Next show on the list is She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and I'm just gonna go and say this is probably the second worst miniseries that Marvel has come up with for Disney Plus, and I have a few things to say about it. So here's the thing: She-Hulk as a character, I love. I do love She-Hulk as a character, but I feel like this show did not do her much justice because I felt more times than none this show just kind of went in all different directions and it's hard to keep up with the main plot. And don't even get me started on the last episode, but more about that later. Pretty much, this show was more times than none mainly about the main character, Jennifer, or Jen, if you want to call her that. Pretty much like trying to deal with, being a Hulk and being human. And more times than none, she wanted to be human rather than a Hulk, but, obviously when the Hulk comes out, it's kind of hard to contain. And, she also spends her time doing different court cases, including Emil Blonsky, aka Abomination. Kind of cool to see him again, ever since, like, his brief cameo in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. But that was still kind of cool to see him again. And on top of that, even if this wasn't till a later episode, or second to last episode, I believe, it was kind of cool to see Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, come back. So that kind of shows what his brief cameo in No Way Home was all about. And here's the thing, I was happy to see Daredevil again, especially for the first time in the true MCU, but I did not really like his new costume. Like, his new costume with, like, the yellow on it. I thought, oh my gosh, it's like ketchup and mustard. Like, it honestly did look like ketchup and mustard. Like, come on, we all got to have some hate on that. Like, I don't know what the reason for that was, but meh. And on top of that, also a brief villain, which was Leapfrog. I never thought they'd temporarily bring him into the MCU, but hey, they did. It, I mean, I don't know what to say about him, but he's not important. And on top of that, the final episode, which I just mentioned, like, the final episode was all kinds of weird. Like, she took the term fourth wall break to a whole new level. Like, there's even a part, or the part in which, like, all things go chaos and it makes no sense. And, and pretty much, like, a fake Disney Plus menu shows up, and I actually even paused while watching. I was like, wait, what? Did I accidentally hit the back button? And then I found out, oh, that's a part of the show? Okay. And then, it was kind of funny to see her fourth wall break and go behind the scenes and change up her show the way she wants it. I mean, that part was weird for sure. So that was weird 100%. Like, that's fourth wall breaking to a whole nother level. And there's a lot of fourth wall breaking in this show. And then on top of that, another brief cameo, which I hope to see again or that I hope to see as a main character in the MCU at some point, or even a supporting character, is Scar, aka Hulk's son. And no, I have not watched Hulk in the Agents of Smash, never tried watching it, but I know who Scar or is, so that's kind of cool. So I hope to see Scar again in a later movie, but overall, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, like I said before, I love She-Hulk as a character, but this show did not do her justice. So I gotta kind of give She-Hulk Attorney at Law a thumbs down. I mean, like I said before, I don't fully hate the show's guts, but it just was not the best show for She-Hulk. Like, that's just me. And I'm sure a lot of you agree, but, maybe She-Hulk will be a better character in future productions. So, yeah. The last miniseries I'm going to talk about is Secret Invasion. Well, it's actually not technically the last. You'll see what I mean in when we get to the next one. But pretty much, this is Secret Invasion, and this is the miniseries that I watched most recently because this is the most recent miniseries that came out. If you don't include season 2 of Loki, which is still ongoing, Now, this, in my opinion, is probably the worst miniseries they've come up with. If you like it, sorry that I'm talking it, but pretty much this show just felt kind of boring. I mean, like, it had Nick Fury as the main character, which don't get me wrong, Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, I definitely like his role as Nick Fury. Samuel L. Jackson, he did a good job as Nick Fury. But pretty much this movie followed the events of, I don't even know what movie, technically, and the main villains were the Skrulls, and I thought when they were going to become the Super Scrolls, I thought that was going to be a much bigger deal. But it turned out to be rather like a minor thing and not even introduced to the end of the show. But yeah, pretty much this show's plot just kind of goes a little bit everywhere. The Skrulls were a boring set of villains because like they were really just alien shapeshifters who were having a revolution and also like later trying to obtain powers. So yeah, I really can't say anything about that. I'm just hoping that like the Super Scrolls become like a main villain, or I guess not hoping, but like I'm guessing the Super Scrolls could become a part of the Fantastic Four movie whenever that's going to come out. But it's been teased. Don't know when it's coming out, but I just have a feeling that's what they might use it for. Since Super Scroll, I think, was originally a Fantastic Four villain. But yeah. Overall, Secret Invasion just felt weird to me, and it felt boring. I don't know. It just wasn't like my iconic series. I mean, it wasn't Eternals bad. Like Eternals was the worst Marvel production I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, but this was not nearly as bad as the Eternals. But it's still not a good series. Like, yeah, I don't know. It just felt boring. The plot was too simple or just made no sense. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can really say about it. I'm not going to rant about it like I did on the Eternals, but I'm just going to say maybe some people will like this show, but I just don't think it's for me. I'm just hoping that me watching it and the events going on will explain something that goes on later. And who knows, since we've seen Nick Fury in the trailer for the Marvels, maybe part of this will explain in like what's going on or what's going to happen in the Marvels. In fact, who knows? Maybe the Skrulls are going to be the main villains of the Marvels. Who knows? But whatever the case, I think that just about wraps up this show. So yeah. Now let's get to the final one. I know I said this was the last one, but I do have kind of an honorable mention. So let's go and take a look at that. Alright, the last thing I'm going to talk about is Werewolf by Night. And I debated mentioning this one considering this isn't truly a miniseries and more like just a Marvel special short film or something. But I just thought I'd mention it since it's a little different. And by the way, I have not seen the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, so that's not going to be included on this list. Maybe I'll watch it at some point, but not right now. But pretty much, Werewolf by Night, it was pretty much like it's just a Marvel short film for Halloween or for the spirit of Halloween. And this is a black and white like mini or short film. So black and white that kind of makes it lose points for me. And this is obviously introducing the character of Jack Russell, aka Werewolf by Night, into the MCU, if you want to call it that. And also temporarily introduced the Man Thing, which was also kind of an interesting like thing to add. But pretty much the whole plot behind this one is pretty much like a bunch of monster hunters have been called to an arena to hunt said monster, which is Man Thing. And pretty much like all the while, like character named Jack Russell, pretty much like he gets the red crystal. Oh, and while he thinks he did well, he also was, or well, I guess I should also mention not just get the red crystal, but also free Man Thing since they're friends or whatever. And pretty much all the while, though, they later find out that Jack Russell is in fact a monster, and because he's a werewolf, and pretty much like they use that against him, and I don't know, the plot just goes a little bit everywhere in this. Overall, like I don't think it was the best thing Marvel came up with. I do like it though, because I have a soft spot for werewolves. I mean, I don't think it was the best adaptation of the character, but at the same time, I think they did a good job, considering I've read about Werewolf by Night before, where Jack Russell has learned how to control his, werewolf side, but on the night of a full moon, he has no control over it. So that actually was a pretty good thing. And then the part where it became color at the very end. That was also kind of weird, but still kind of cool. And yeah, overall, Werewolf by Night, I admit it is a little out there, but I do think it was a nice little short film to watch for Halloween, so thumbs up to that. Some people might not like it, but I personally enjoyed it a good bit. Alright, Pack members, so that wraps up my ratings for the Marvel Disney Plus miniseries, whatever you want to call them. And overall, I do think all the ones that I have watched are pretty good. The only ones I didn't really enjoy were Secret Invasion. That one was the worst one so far. And then She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Once again, love the character, but the show did not do her justice. But, that's okay. Maybe She-Hulk will get a better role in the future. But yeah, whatever the case, I think that does just about wrap up this video. But you might have noticed something. You might be thinking, Spirit, you left out one of the miniseries. Where's What If? Well, I feel like What If is a mini series on its own. So, and I think it deserves its own video. So there is going to be kind of part two to this video, if you want to call it, where I talk about just what if and like rank each episode individually, since each episode is unique in its own special way. But I don't have time to do that in this video because I think I've made y'all watch this long enough, 30 minutes and over. But whatever the case, that just wraps up this video. So until next time, this is Spirit the Alpha signing out. I'll see you guys back in the pack.